Hello everyone, this is Miss Angela Suarez and today we're going to be learning about operant conditioning. In the previous class, we were talking about classical conditioning and it was a way of learning. If you remember, it had to do with an unconditioned response, an unconditioned stimulus, and when they paired together, the individual could change or affected that behavior. Today, we're going to be learning about operant conditioning. So exactly what is operant conditioning? I'm going to say it is a type of learning, okay? We're learning to learn in this chapter, in which a behavior is strengthened when followed by a reinforcement. For example, the girl here is well behaving because I'm giving her an ice cream cone. And also, operant conditioning states that a behavior can be diminished if followed by a punishment. So that is why the good doctor over here is, tapping the baby's little butt in order for that baby to stop crying. We're going to basically say that we need a reinforcement or something that will cause us to change our behavior or a punishment, okay? So in order for you not to get confused about classical conditioning and operant conditioning, I'm going to say first that both of them have to do with the acquisition of learning and the acquisition of a behavior that is going to change. Another thing is that both of them are going to have discrimination. You're going to be able to make a difference between reinforcers or stimulus that you might have like, okay, and generalization and extinction. SR, stimulus and reinforcers. So you will also be able to generalize in operant conditioning. And also, sometimes, reinforcers didn't work anymore and they just extinct, as we learned in the past class. So to refresh a little bit of your mind, in classical conditioning, remember that we are responding to a stimulus. First come the stimulus and then the behavior, okay? Dogs, in the example of Pavlov's experiment, were automatically salivating over meat, and nobody gave them any prize. And after that, remember that the psychiatrist would pair the bell sound with the salivation of the dog. So first, a stimulus came and then a behavior happened. We paired it together. And then we have operant conditioning, which has to do with consequences. In the operant conditioning, watch out your screen. First is going to be the behavior, and then the stimulus is going to come. Just to give you an example, I'm going to tell the dogs, if you hear this bell, then your food is going to come, okay? But in operant conditioning, we will have the dog salivating and then giving the stimulus, okay? Then giving, the food. It is technically a reverse way of showing learning in a particular, situation, and both of them work effectively, okay? So make sure that maybe you can use this in your house or somewhere else. I have here a very funny picture of a pigeon, and I want to tell you how did operant conditioning started. Actually, B.F. Skinner is the one responsible, this handsome man I'm showing you today, of us having classical conditioning. So what is it about? Well, B.F. Skinner decided that he was going to have a military program called Project Pigeon, okay, in which he was going to send pigeons into war and he was going to train them in order for them to attack the enemy, okay? There's a lot of things going on. They believed, in World War that animals could help in war. So whatever happened in Skinner's, experiment was that the pigeons were tapping, a glass to, resemble the airplane's glass. And whenever the pigeons would tap the glass, listen out, behavior first, Skinner would give them a little prize or food, a reinforcer. So his initial thought was that he was going to train these pigeons and then, release them in missiles so that they could do the same thing in the enemy's airplanes. And in that way, they will, win the war or at least make some good achievements. But it didn't work out. That is one of the major bumps down of these experiments. It didn't work out. Of course, how can you, put your whole army into Pigeon's hands, right? But whatever I want to tell you is that he observed something very important. That first, the behavior was made automatically by this animal, and then he had the opportunity to give a reinforcer or something the animal would like in order for that animal to continue doing the behavior. And actually, that is what operant conditioning is about. Okay, so later on, he developed a second experiment, and we're going to talk about it. It's going to be the Skinner's box. And into your left side, you're going to see an animated version of it. I just wanted to put, little pictures in order for you to understand. There was a box, a rat inside it, a lever, a dispenser, light, and a speaker. So basically, this experiment was about the rat touching the lever. And if he automatically did, then food was going to come through the dispenser site. If you think about it, whenever the rat was, investigating about his environment and touching everything, he then realized that there was a lever and he was going down and then food appeared. So next time, whenever the animal needed food, what do you think would happen? He would automatically think in his brain, okay, in order for me to get food, what do I have to do? Of course, touch the lever. So they would touch the lever again, and then food was going to come. And basically, Skinner made that animal understand and learn how was he going to get food. Okay, in the right side you can see the animated version, actually the real life version of this experiment. This actually happened. This actually worked, not like the one from Project Pigeon. And you can see that sometimes we do behaviors, we act in a certain manner, and whenever a prize or a reinforcer comes, then you just automatically do it again. Okay, if this was working in animals, let's see if it works in human beings. So one of the most important parts of operant conditioning is a reinforcement. Okay, a reinforcement is that stimulus that increases the chance of a preceding behavior to occur again. So let's say that I give extra points for the people who was early in the class. Okay, and then whenever the other kids were inside the class, they're like, hey, why didn't I get an extra point? And then I'm going to tell them, well, they were early. That is why they got an extra point. Do I have a probability for next class that you guys are going to be early? Yes, right? So that is exactly how operant conditioning works. First, we have a behavior, and we're going to give a price or a reinforcer to that behavior in order for the behavior to happen again. In the case of the rat, okay, his stimulus was food, and his behavior was touching the lever. Remember, it automatically happened before touching the lever, and then food came. So whenever the animal was hungry, he would understand that he had to press the lever in order for him to get food. And that is basic psychology, okay? You're understanding that they are not training the rat. They are not telling the rat, dude, touch the lever. Animal, do you want to start? Touch the lever. They are not saying that, okay? They are making the animal do it by itself so that he can believe, it's by his actual discovery, okay? And this is great psychology. Whenever we leave something happen, in order for the person to deduce or conclude, and in that way, the person will repeat it again because you're not telling him to do it. He's actually wanting to do it, okay? So I'm just putting this funny picture of course, I will press the lever for food. The rat says, because if not, he was going to starve. So just as in classical conditioning, and I don't want you to forget that, remember that we had types of classical conditioning. We had taste aversion, we had extinction, we also learned generalization. We're going to have types of reinforcers, okay, here in operant conditioning. So first, I'm going to go with the primary one, which is a primary reinforcer. Okay, this is an innate reinforcer, and this is when Miss Angela is going to price someone with food, sex, hunger, okay, or something that will make you survive, like breathing. Those things can be a primary reinforcer. So if I tell you, I'm gonna price, fulanito for a homework, and I decide to give him a banana, guess what? It is a primary reinforcer because it is food. A primary reinforcer has to do with you know, our basic needs. Also, I put you an example with this funny guy about surviving. Sometimes we touch something and it, you know, produces electricity. You're not gonna stay there. The behavior is for you to bump out or, you know, away from it because you want to survive. You don't want to die. So one thing to survive is also a primary reinforcer. Let's go ahead. We also have a secondary reinforcer. A secondary reinforcer is going to be a reinforcer that you have learned that it works. For example, this nerdy apple, okay, she wants to have straight A's. Whenever you are in kinder and the teacher tells you, oh my God, you got 100, kids go like, great, I got 100. They don't know, okay, what's going on. And then they start learning that getting A's and hundreds in school is a big deal. So guess what? Getting 100 is a big deal for you. It is a secondary reinforcer as you learn or you're associating it, okay, with a primary reinforcer. And also, one of the best reinforcers, it would be secondary too, is money, ting. What happens whenever you're small? You ask your mother or father, oh, please, you know, get me that toy, or please buy me this, buy me that. But whenever you're growing up, you understand that you need money in order for you to get or buy whatever you want. So at this point of your life, you tell your parents, okay, give me money. You know, you like it. If they tell you get 100 in all of your grades this quarter, and I'm gonna give you 1,000 lempiras, 2,000, I don't know, what's your price, then you would do it, and you have learned it. Secondary reinforcer, it has to do with something that you have learned to acquire. You know that this makes you feel good, okay? Then we're gonna have positive reinforcement. And this has to do with strengthening a response by presenting a stimulus after a response, okay? This means that we're gonna make the person feel better in a positive way, and any type of stimulus that makes you feel better is going to be a positive reinforcement. For example, a little kiss in the cheek, if that works, in the forehead, I'm sorry, if that works for you, is going to be a positive reinforcement. Or again, money, if it makes you feel good, is going to be a positive reinforcement. Or in the case of couples, whenever they are together, they feel good, it is a positive reinforcement. In Miss Angela's case, if you give me chocolate, I love it. So anything that is positive for the person is going to be a positive reinforcement. Okay, let's then go to negative reinforcers. So a negative reinforcement is not a bad thing, and I want to clarify that since right now, it's not a bad thing. It is something that will reduce an aversion that you have in your body. So if it is very hot and you need air and you need a fan, and somebody gives you a fan and they give you a little bit of air, that is a negative reinforcement, okay? Giving you the fan because it's making you feel better. It is reducing something that you're not liking. For example, whenever something itches you, you don't go, ay, algo me pica. No, te rascas, ¿verdad? So you start scratching yourself, and that is also a good example of a negative reinforcement, okay? Some people believe that smoking decreases their anxiety. It is not, okay, don't do it. But yes, it's also going to be considered a negative reinforcement, not because smoking is bad, which it is, but it's because they are decreasing a behavior, okay? You just want to get it out of your system. Or sometimes we can say be locked down. So then we're going to also talk about reinforcements that have to do with schedules. I want to give you $100 if you knew what the picture in my screen is right now. You're going to die. It was a very old, a classic organizer, and they would beep for several times. I just wanted to put out something, you know, a little bit of history in it. But let's talk about those reinforcements. We're going to talk about continuous reinforcement. We're going to talk about actions in which we are doing these reinforcements. So a continuous reinforcement is that we're going to reinforce the desired response every time it occurs. This means that every time this rat, you know, goes from one side of the street to the other one, Miss Angela is going to give a banana. And if the rat does it again, I'm going to give another banana. If it does it 5 times, I'm going to give 5 times the banana, okay? A continuous reinforcement. Every time the behavior happens, I'm going to be pricing it. Okay, let's then go to partial reinforcement. Remember, we're talking about time of these behaviors happening. So a partial reinforcement has to do with reinforcing only a little part of a behavior, and the acquisition of the behavior I am expecting is going to take a little bit of a big process, okay? And let's talk about, for example, this man, okay? He's actually a sportsman, he trains every day. So guess what? If he trains very hard and he throws that ball and he measures 100 meters, okay, that's going to be good for him, but he's not enough to go to the Olympics. So he has to continue training. And then he's going to do it one more time. And the next month, he's going to acquire to get 200 meters. So guess what? He's getting very close, you know, to whatever the other people in the world is doing. So he's going to continue training. As you see, he's partially getting whatever he wants, and he understands that if he continues to get better, at some point, his behavior is going to get to a place where it's going to be accepted. Okay, he's going to actually get his objective. So the next month, 300 meters, 400 meters, and, you know, getting the meters in order for him to participate. One of the biggest advantages of a partial reinforcement is that it has a greater resistance to extinction. That means that it is very difficult for this man to forget, okay, about this behavior, and also about how good this feels. So it is a great example of partial reinforcement. Great. Let's then go to fixed ratio scales. What is this? It is a schedule that reinforces a response only after a specific number of responses. So I don't know if you remember Sesame Street, but let's believe that the Cookie Monster sings, you know, as the example says, every 5 times he seeks for a C, he's gonna get a cookie. So I'm gonna give him a specific numbers of repetition. This behavior has to happen in order for me to give him the prize. So if he does it 5 times, then I'm gonna give him a prize. You can think about a fixed ratio schedules whenever your parents tell you, okay, have straight A's in 5 homeworks, and then I'm gonna give you the tennis shoes that you wanted. They are putting you a specific number of behaviors that they want to see in you, and then they're going to give you the prize. So it would be a good fixed ratio schedule example. Okay. Then let's go to a variable ratio schedule. So this has to do with a schedule of reinforcement that reinforces a response after an unpredictable number of responses. So let's say, you know, Homer is loving donuts, and if he behaves well, then he's gonna get a donut, but he doesn't know how many days he needs to behave well in order for him to get a donut. So maybe he's gonna behave well 2 days and then he's gonna get a donut, or maybe he's gonna behave well 6 days and then he's gonna get a donut. And you know, this is a great example of a variable ratio schedule. Then we're going to have another type of reinforcer or behavior called fixed interval schedule. And what is this one about? I'm sorry for Bart. He's just, you know, bad behaving. A schedule of reinforcement that reinforces a response only after a specific time has elapsed. So I'm talking about having a chronometer and measuring the time. Bart is not doing that with his hands. I'm going to tell him, Bart, if you hold your pants for 10 minutes, then I'm gonna give you your prize. It has to do with time. I can actually say, Bart, if you don't do it for a week, okay, as soon as you're giving time for a behavior not to happen, then it is going to become a fixed interval schedule, okay? We will also have another type of variable called a variable interval schedule. And what is this one about? Well, it is a schedule of reinforcement that reinforces a response at an unpredictable time interval. So let's imagine we're in a class, and then the teacher announces that we're gonna have a pop quiz. People is gonna go like, what, Miss, a pop quiz? No, Miss, no nos dijo, we don't know. And you're gonna make your pop quiz. So next time, maybe Miss Angela is going to say it in 2 or 3 weeks, or maybe next class, and you guys don't know about it. So what is going to cost? Maybe it's going to cost, or one, that you hate me, of course. Number two, it's going to cost you to study daily because you don't know when this is going to happen. So if I'm giving a reinforcer or a situation is happening at an unpredictable time, we're going to talk about a variable interval schedule. Let me tell you that this one is very effective, as the person who will receive the reinforcer tends to be active, tends to be looking at what is going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. So you tend to, do a behavior as I want you to do it, study, in order for you to be ready for these quizzes, okay? And one of the last ones that we have in operant conditioning is called shaping. And shaping has to do with a procedure in which reinforcers guide behavior closer and closer towards a goal. So I'm going to move very slow into small tasks in order for me to teach you a bigger task. Let's think about this donkey, okay? The person on top of it wants this donkey to get into a specific place. Instead of spanking the donkey, muévete, muévete, he puts a tiny string in front of him, and he's actually moving, because he wants the food. And at some point, the donkey is going to get, to its place. This trick, you guys, is really old. And that is why I love psychology, because people tend to do a lot of things in behavior and they actually don't know that they're changing things. They're changing behaviors. Let's, for example, think about shaping as you going on your bicycle. At first, your mom would tell you, hey, I have a big prize for you. It's going to be phenomenal. This can be your favorite toy. And then she's going to tell you, your dad, it's going to show you the moves. He's going to put you on top of the bicycle and he's going to tell you stories about how great the bicycle was. And then, the next day he's going to take you to a park and he's going to carry with you and carry you through the bicycle for you to have a good time. And then, he's going to put those tiny training wheels in order for you to do it by yourself. And at some point between 6 and 7 years, you're going to end up taking the wheels out of the bicycle, and you're going to, be rocking it. And at some point, you're a professional cyclist, and you didn't know how this happened. Your mom and your dad had this big plan for you. They didn't said to you directly, you will become the best in the world. You're going to become a professional. You're going to win money and go, to compete with the best. No, they just started shaping small steps and behaviors and giving you reinforcers in the way in order for you to achieve their actual goal. So people, yes, this is the class in psychology where you realize that many of the things that you do, how you act, how you behave, it's because of your parents, parenting. It's because of how they want you to act. And if you think about a lot of what has gone at home, you can actually admire for the way they have shaped your behavior, okay? So one of the things in which operant conditioning really focuses is that punishment is not the best idea, okay? We're gonna actually define punishment as an event that decreases the behavior that it follows. So check out that the definition doesn't say it extincts the behavior, it erases the behavior, the person is not gonna do it again. It actually says it's going to decrease the behavior. And another thing about punishment is that it can create anger and hostility to both sides, to the parent who is punishing and to the kid, because you get angry when somebody, speaks loud to you, or they used to spank you. I hope they don't anymore. And I'm sorry. And one of the, perks of punishment, according to operant conditioning, is that it leads to the imitation of this behavior while being in actual society. So whenever you go into a classroom or to your working space in this close future, you realize that you solve the problems just as your parents did with you. And if you had parents that screamed a lot and that they would, throw things whenever they wanted, for you to do stuff, or they would punish you in this certain manner, um, then you end up acting like this in your adult life, And I believe certainly, you guys, that punishment gives you a good balance as soon as you explain, okay, what has happened. So I am not a psychologist that is not going to tell you not to believe in punishment, because punishment works. But whenever you explain that individual, like, Bart, this and this was whatever you did wrong. So that is why I'm not going to let you your phone anymore. Okay? So don't do it again. I'm punishing him, but I'm explaining. And that is one of the major keys that you need to understand, not only as adolescents, but as future parents. That sometimes it's not only about the punishment, it's actually about explaining what behavior you disliked. You have to tell the person, Bart, you were rude to your classmates by putting your pants up. What is going on with you? Okay, that was wrong. So because you did this wrong, this is your punishment. Okay, and I would like you to do this as a change of behavior. In that way, operant conditioning will, support punishment. In the majority of the cases, and how people does it, no. And just to finish this presentation, I want to tell you that sometimes doing things in a smooth way can help us change behaviors. And I want you to make experiments with your parents. Sometimes you're like, ay, mami, dame esto. And if you ask it in a smooth way, or mami, te ayudo a lavar la ropa, or mamá, te ayudo a cocinar, you can actually achieve good things. So check out my example of the dog. The dog pees, and they say, bad, be outside the next time. Oh my God, what a terrible dog you are. And then whenever he's in the grass, okay, they're going to say, hey, yay, you pee in the grass. So instead of punishing the dog, they are actually rewarding it. And you guys check out that it is the same action. It's peeing. But the way the person is reacting is whatever, it's changing the behavior and making it better. You see, the dog is actually happy. I'm sorry. And then the last thing is that usually we tend to believe that by the hard way we're gonna achieve things, and sometimes we want people to follow our lead, and we want to spank them until they do whatever we want to do. But if you change that, just as in that donkey example, I am in the picture at the bottom, and you give people those small things in order for you to do whatever they want, they actually end up doing it, and they feel good for themselves because they think it was them and it was their own intention. So I hope you guys learned today about operant conditioning. It is my pleasure always to talk about psychology. I am passionate about this science, as everything we do in our life has to do with this. One of the most amazing things is that sometimes you do things, your mother has done things, and she's not educated in that. We're just humans, and we figure out things. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you learned a lot.